Hey guys, it's Max. Welcome to my full detailed review for video shooters. I'm down here in San Diego for the next couple of days. I'm going to be putting this camera through its paces and shooting this review vlog style, since this is what this camera is designed to be set up as. And right now I'm looking at the flip screen. I'm trying to keep looking down at the lens, and it is really nice to be able to see and make sure that I'm framed properly, that my audio levels are showing properly, and not overexposing my image. So that part is really, really nice and convenient. Unfortunately, as you can probably tell, I'm using the built-in microphone right now because with the screen flipping up, you can't put a mic on top or else you're gonna block the screen. And so that is a big downside. My first downside to this camera is that the screen flips up. I wish it would have flipped out to the side like a lot of Panasonics and some other brands, but there are some workarounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over, plug in a lav mic. I'm gonna put the lav mic on myself and give you guys a much better audio experience.
Oh, it went up again.
All right, so that should sound quite a bit better. And right off the bat, I have some good news and some bad news for you video shooters. First off, the bad news, this camera does not have any IBIS. Now I'm looking at this display right now as I'm walking, and it doesn't seem too bad. That's because this lens has image stabilization, but a lot of the other lenses that are out there don't have it, especially if you have adapted lenses. So that's why the A6500 is still a step above. That does have IBIS, but this camera has two things that the A6500 does not that would make me choose this camera instead of that one. But before that, let's cross the street because there is a sweet car out here that I have to get some shots of. Now, most of the camera press here are photographers, and they're focusing on the autofocus system in this camera because it is really, really good. We have the same amount of autofocusing points as before, but now the A6400 has the same processor as the flagship A9 camera, meaning it could do a ton of processing with the data from that sensor. It now has eye autofocus and a new generation that is improved upon. It can actually focus on animals' eyes, which is crazy. You have a lot more options. Not only that, we have a new tracking function where you can track an object, and that's both in photo and video, and it'll look at colors and patterns and depth and allow you to track that subject even if you don't see an eye or anything else. And for us video shooters, that means just like on a Canon, we can now just easily tap on the subject and it will do a really good job tracking. So that is very nice, especially now that we have a flip screen and now that we have a touch screen on here. That's gonna be very convenient. Now, as I walk over to the skate park here, I want to let you guys know the two reasons why I would choose the A6400 over an A6500 even. First reason is the screen no longer dims. Now today it's a really gloomy day. It's a little bit of sun right over there, but it's been raining. But if it wasn't, even if it was super sunny outside like it usually is in San Diego, I would have no issue shooting outside because the screen could be in sunny mode, just like the A7 III and A7R III. So that is so, so nice, especially if you're gonna be vlogging with this camera. Now, the second thing that I wanna say is amazing with this camera is the fact that it no longer has a record limit. So like almost every single Sony camera, you have a 30-minute limit when you're shooting. That means if you wanna do stuff like wedding ceremonies, do some presentations, you have to reset it before it turns off automatically. That is not a part of this camera anymore. I really hope they update the 6500, 6300, A7 III to that. They didn't tell me, they don't know if they will or not, but this camera at least does not have that limit. And with it having the A9 processor, I'm hoping that overheating will also be a non-issue. So I've been testing out the touch autofocusing tracking. It does take a little bit longer to initiate compared to a Canon camera with a dual pixel. I tapped on the guy with the red jacket, and even though a bunch of skaters are going in front of him, it did not switch forward and start tracking them. That's because they can use the color to track as well. I also tapped on Jordan Drake and it was tracking him, and then when he was blocked by Rishi from DP Review, it didn't switch automatically to Rishi, it stayed on where the focusing point was previously. Alright, so we're out here checking out some basketball. Manny, what are your thoughts on this camera? Do you think this is a hit or a miss? Do you think people are gonna buy this?
I think that for the target audience, I think it'll do well. Obviously, we all want the perfect camera.
Yeah.
And the perfect camera would have been that screen flipped to the side,
IBIS.
And I think we would have
Bigger battery, maybe.
the Z battery. I put that in my video.
A7000, basically, what we were hoping for.
Yeah,
we thought it was going to go.
But if that, okay, everything could have stayed the same. Give me that screen to the side. I think I would have been a lot happier with the design.
Up here, we're gonna go out and grab some dinner. Hopefully it's gonna be dark. I'll do some low light shots for you guys. I don't expect much of a difference compared to their other APC cameras. And just to give you guys a general feel, like what Manny said here, we have a feeling of wanting a bit more, wanting something higher end instead of something like a lower end or entry level APS-C camera. Okay, so we are heading back. I didn't get too much low light shots, but you guys got to see those. Now, what I did do is I recorded for 50 minutes straight, so I wanted to test out and make sure that it didn't stop recording after a half hour, which it didn't. Along with that, I was able to see how much battery it was taking. So after 50 minutes of recording, I still had 40% battery life left. So you guys could do the math on that, but it definitely is an improvement over the A63 and A6500, just like I thought with that new, more efficient processor. It is taking less power. And along with that, the back of the camera was barely even warm. So that processor is definitely doing its thing. Hey guys, good morning. We have another day. I'm gonna go grab some breakfast and then we have some kind of a meeting to go to. So Sony started out by making a big deal saying that there's been lots of discussion that their E-mount wasn't designed for full frame and there are limitations because of that. They cited an article published in 2010 where they talked about full frame with the E-mount, and then went into specifics saying that yes, just like Nikon said, if they did have a mirror in the box like the Nikon F mount, they would be limited at about a f1.2 or so. Their actual aperture limitation is f0.63, not far off from the Canon and Nikons. Now the last thing was how the real-time tracking worked compared to their previous lock-on autofocus that just looked at the subjects. Now the camera can find an eye, and if it can't find an eye, it'll switch to face tracking, and if it can't see a face, it'll switch over to the real-time tracking mode. Now this is specifically great for video, where if you have face detection and the subject turns around, you can sometimes get out of focus, where now if you touch on them, it'll focus on the face. As soon as it doesn't see a face, it'll switch back to the subject tracking and then back to the face. So that is really nice, especially for interviews. Alright guys, so we are here at a beach. You guys see the ocean there in the background. It's actually a dog park, so it doesn't smell so good, but that's okay. So I'm gonna be doing some shooting here soon. I'm gonna pull out my Mavic Air, get a couple drone shots. But I did want to update you guys on the whole firmware thing. So this camera does not have a recording limit, but unfortunately that is not going to be coming to the other Sony cameras like the A7 III. They said because those cameras were released in the past when they did have that tax thing with the recording limits,
they can't remove it unless they make a whole new serial number and stuff like that, even though it's a very easy thing to do in firmware. So if you don't want a recording limit, you're gonna have to buy the A6400 or one of their cameras that come out after that. So that is a huge bummer. The other thing I want to mention is I'm standing here, it's high noon sun right there. It is just blaring on the camera, blaring on the screen, and I'm recording with the sunny mode on, and I have no problem seeing anything on the display, even though it's reflective. It is at least as bright as like the A7 III, the A7 R3, maybe even brighter. I mean, this is really nice. With the A6500, I would not be able to see the screen at all. Well, in the first place, it doesn't flip up, but even if it did, I would not be able to see it being outside. So let's go ahead and get that drone out. So that is not happening. Unfortunately, you have to have a waiver for this area, and I don't have a waiver. So my hopes of getting some nice drone shots are ruined, but I guess I'll just throw this camera on a gimbal and go do some shooting. So this was all 1080p at 120 frames per second. It looks decent, but it is a step below the Sony A7 III in terms of quality. Now, you cannot use the tracking touch autofocus when you're shooting in 120, only in 1080 up to 60 and the 4K mode. So this was all just using the wide mode and letting the camera decide what it wants to focus on, which it did quite a good job. Now, the next thing I went into is shooting 4K, and we have a bunch of these dogs running around. And when I was shooting, I was slightly disappointed. It seemed like it was tough and it wasn't tracking that well, but looking back at the footage, it actually did a really good job. I think it was just hard for me to hold my gimbal and try to touch on these dogs as they're trying to run around and try to guess what they're gonna do next. So as far as the tracking performance, you can see it's actually doing a fantastic job tracking the dogs. Lastly, I tested out a couple of the different picture profiles, and the HLG looks fantastic. It's super clean, not a lot of noise, and the highlight retention is great. But I did shoot S-Log3, lots of dynamic range, but because it's 8-bit, I would not recommend it. I would shoot S-Log2 instead. You guys can see the compression artifacts. But on the plus side, this is the first Sony that has a base ISO of 500 for S-Log instead of 800, so that is very nice. Alright guys, so I'm back in my hotel room. It is really late at night. We had a really long dinner, and I'm here running some tests for you guys. I have my A6500 set up side by side with the A6400 using two brand spanking new Sony batteries that are completely charged. And what I want to test is, one, how does the battery life compare? How much better is the A6400s with that new, more efficient processor inside? And two, are we going to see any overheating logos or anything like that? And also, how warm do the cameras get? So that's been an issue with the previous cameras. I think it could be a bit better, and we will find out. So we're right at almost a half hour here, 29 minutes 38 seconds. My A6500 has 56% remaining, which is actually a little bit better than usual, maybe because it's just sitting here and it's a brand spanking new battery. And the A6400 has 73%. Let's wait for the magic moment. There you go. This one stopped. Let me restart it. Hit 30, and the magic right over there. We are still rolling past 30 minutes, so let's keep going. Quick update, the A6500 did turn on a little overheating icon just a couple minutes after we rolled over that 30-minute mark. A little over 59 minutes now. I have 10% battery life on the 6500 and 40% on the 6400. As far as temps, this thing is definitely quite hot at the top, while this one is just barely warm to the touch. We're almost at an hour and 9 minutes, which is incredible. I've never seen one of these go much over an hour. It hasn't overheated. Of course, if we were shooting outside, especially in direct sunlight, and it was a warmer day, it would have shut off by now, definitely. Typically, it's more like 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then it will shut off. And now the A6400's battery is almost dead, and the camera is just a little bit warm to the touch. It's not hot at all. So have we finally gotten to the point where Sony cameras, the battery life is much better, even with a small battery, and we're not seeing any overheating It definitely, there we go, battery exhausted. So I think that was 1 hour and 38 minutes. No, we don't have the Z batteries that last 2.5 hours, but around 1.5 hours. So that is definitely a good improvement over the previous 50 minutes to an hour that I would get. So it is 1:26 a.m. Yes, I did just sit for 1 hour and 20 minutes testing out how long this battery would last. That is not really fun to do, but you know, it has to be done. So I'm gonna go get into bed and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. So most of the time that we were in San Diego, the weather looked just like this. It was stormy, rainy. We did get a little bit of time when we went to the beach where it was nice, but other than that, it was kind of gloomy. Before I give you guys my final honest opinions on this camera, I want to give you guys a little bit of a look at the menu. A lot of things have been updated. I'm not going to go through everything, but we do have time-lapse functionality built in. We can customize a lot more, remove things that we don't need. We can now adjust our ISOs, and if you shoot with auto ISO, it'll actually display the ISO that you're at, which is really nice. We have all of our picture profiles available now. And like I mentioned, the minimal ISO is now 500 instead of 800, so 2/3 of a stop. We have slow and quick recording added. You can initiate recording with a shutter button instead of that tiny little button on the side. When you customize your buttons, there's actually a little icon so you can see what you're actually changing. And we now have the My menu, so you can put the things you adjust most in a separate little tab, and that really is helpful. Alright guys, so this is the last morning. I will be heading out soon from San Diego back to Spokane, and I want to just get real with you guys, just give you my complete honest opinion. I'm looking back at my hands-on video and so much negative comments are left on there. A lot of people are hating on this camera, and that's okay. You guys are entitled to your own opinions. I will give you my honest opinion. Yes, I was not expecting this camera just like you guys. I was expecting an A7000, before that an A7S III, which I think we're all waiting for. But am I as disappointed as a lot of you guys are about this camera? And no, absolutely not. In fact, I will be buying one of these cameras, and I will let you guys know why. Yes, it doesn't have IBIS, and that sucks. I think every camera should have IBIS, but they're trying to meet that lower price point. So if you look at most other brands, if you look at their low-end cameras, they don't have IBIS. It does cost more to implement that. IBIS is so nice if you're going to be doing handheld work, especially with lenses that aren't stabilized. But when you're walking with IBIS, it looks like junk anyways. Especially in these small bodies like the A6500, there's barely any room for that stabilization to move around, and it just doesn't do a good job. Look at some of my previous footage. On the full frames, it's a little bit better, but it still does not compete to the competition. With that said, we have a $300 difference compared to the A6500, and personally, I would take this camera any day of the week over an A6500. There is no doubt about it. So what we have is the image quality is the same, the low light is the same, the autofocusing system, at least it's the same, which is good. If the video autofocus is very good. You guys have seen over the years on my channel how well it has performed, but now we have much more convenient tracking, no recording limit. That is huge, and along with that, a lot less heat. We have a super bright screen now that does not dim. That is huge for usability, where you couldn't see the screen outside. It was such a pain. You had to use that external monitor or the EVF. Now you can see outside. We have the flip-up screen, which, yes, you might have to do a workaround if you want to put a shotgun on top. There's a little small HD bracket that's super slim that will get your mic just out of the way, and I think that it's going to be perfect. I need to order one of those. So there are some workarounds that you might still have to do if you want to vlog. Yes, it doesn't have 4K 60 or stuff like that, but it's a $900 camera that is a fantastic still shooting camera and get some fantastic, really good quality 4K video. Yes, it's a Sony. You might have to tweak the colors more so than some other cameras, but you got to choose what works best for you guys. Does Canon work for you, best for you? Panasonic, Fuji, Nikon. We have a lot of options nowadays, and that is the best thing, to have options and to have competition, because that's what drives these camera companies to improve and to listen to us and want to change things and, you know, have new features and stuff like that. So I am all up for options. So anyways, I will be picking one of these cameras up. I think if you shoot video, especially if you want an excellent B or C camera, I mean, you're not going to be using the IBIS. Typically, you'll be on sticks or maybe on a gimbal. But if you want something cheap that's going to match up with your other Sonys, that's going to give you great quality, it's going to have better battery life, you can see the screen actually, and not have the record limit, that is really nice as a C camera if you just want to set it up, or a B camera on sticks and let it run. For the YouTubers out there, that is so nice if you're going to sit and talk for a while. I think it's going to do the job well, and I think it is going to sell well. If you guys want to pick one of these up, there's affiliate links in the video description that helps support the channel. If you made it this far, please hit that like button. And I'm going to do a video, and I'm going to just do a side-by-side talk about the specs compared to the A6500 and the A6400, the pros and cons of each. So make sure you guys have those notifications enabled to see that video that is specific about which one you should choose. And like always, we're going to have more videos coming up on the channel. This has been Max. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.